Haslab project, let's talk about the figures. Hello and welcome back to Jacob's Toys. Please do like, share, subscribe and all of those things. All support to the channel is very much appreciated. So yesterday we saw the release of the third Marvel Legends Haslab project. And it of course was the very cool looking Robbie Reyes and his Hell Charger. This thing came with a whole bunch of accessories, and I have done another video looking a little bit more in detail about what the offering is. But that's not what I want to talk about in this video. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about the numbers, the figures, the costs, and of course, the general kind of opinion of people online, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc, etc. So this is the third Haslab project from Marvel Legends. They've done two previously. They did the Sentinel in 2020 and they did Galactus in 2021. Now the Sentinel has landed, obviously people have that in their collection, and there was a few little problems with that to start with the knee joints, if everyone can remember back to that. A lot of people were posting about the knee joints being a problem and the Sentinel kind of flopping a little bit. I was quite lucky, mine didn't have that problem, but I know that a lot of other collectors did. Galactus, however, is still due to ship. People are getting their shipping emails at the moment, and he is due to land any minute now. And that falls kind of in line with what happened last time. The Sentinel was backed, and before it was shipped, the Galactus was announced, and now we've got another Haslab project announced before Galactus has shipped. So this particular Haslab project is priced up at $350, as well as £350, but that's tax and delivery charges and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into that right now. So for the sake of this video, I'm just going to class it as $350. So wherever it is that you're watching this video, you know that it's $350, or you know that it's £350. Now I know this doesn't talk for all parts of the world, because I know that the Haslab project, to reach certain countries, you've got to pay a lot more tax and import fees and all that kind of stuff, and the price really can skyrocket. Now I know this doesn't count for the entire world. Some of the other international markets, you're paying a lot more on import tax and delivery fees and stuff like that, and it can take the price really high. Can add like another $100–150 in some cases. So this is something that they do need to look at, because we all know the international market is definitely where a whole bunch of those figures came in the past. So let's break it down. $350 this one costs. What you get for that is you get the car, you get all of the accessories, and you get a 6-inch figure, Ghost Rider 6-inch figure. They've also stated that if the minimum number of backers is reached within a week, you'll get an additional 6-inch figure of the Robbie Reyes figure. Now, if we take current prices into the equation, that's £50 worth of action figures to go with this project, leaving the offering of the car and all the accessories at $300. Still quite steep, but stick with me. Let's go back to 2020. In 2020, we saw the release of the first ever Haslab project, which of course was the Sentinel. Now this was marked up at $350 as well, and the initial minimum backers that they needed was only 6,000. It was quite a low number. 6,000 backers at the price of $350. Now that works out to be about 2.1 million as revenue, which is quite a lot. The initial offering came with a whole bunch of accessories, including a Bastion figure, and it stood 26 inches tall. Now straight away you're probably saying, what, a 26-inch tall figure compared to a car which is about 18 inches long is a huge jump. Yeah, and you're not wrong. Tier 1 was announced at 7,000 backers, so if they reached the 7,000 backer mark, then they would add an additional tier, which was a master mold head, so you got an additional head for your Sentinel figure. Great stuff. Once Tier 1 was hit, they announced Tier 2, and that was at 8,000 backers, and that was a damaged Sentinel head. Hey! Tier 3 was announced after Tier 2 was met, and that was 9,000 backers, and it was a female Sentinel Prime. So we got the Bastion figure and a female Sentinel. So we were going to get two 6-inch figures along the lines of our big 26-inch figure. So that takes the retail of the additional figures up to about $50, £50, whatever it is you want to class it as. All three of those tiers were met, and they announced a fourth and final tier at 16,000 backers. And that was a Tri-Sentinel head. All of these tiers were surpassed, and the guys over at Marvel Legends did throw in an additional tentacle. Is that the right word? Tentacle? That comes out of the Sentinel's hand. And that was as a little thank you kind of thing, because the backers went so high. I think it was up into the top tier of the 20s. However, when you look at all the additional things, you've got four 4 tiers. So you had 3 additional heads, an additional female, and the Bastion figure. So that's 5 tiers. And if you worked out each of those tiers at the kind of the price of a figure, about 25, that's 125. Quick maths. Taking that off of the initial price of 350 takes it down to 225 that you're paying for the Sentinel, and then that much for the thing. So that's not too bad. That wasn't too bad. Everyone got really excited about the Sentinel, and it did get a huge amount of backers. However, the aftermarket price of it went up quite high because so many people wanted to back it but didn't. Because if you remember, in 2020, we had a little thing called the pandemic going on. So a lot of people were kind of holding on to their money. So to have this many backers in that kind of crisis situation was a huge achievement. And it was the fastest funded Haslab project to date, I think was the terminology that they were using. So it did really well, and it set the precedent for Marvel Legends. Moving on to 2021, they announced the Galactus Haslab project, boasting to be the biggest, tallest Marvel Legends figure ever produced. This thing was huge, and it stood head and shoulders over the Sentinel. Still not got one in hand because it hasn't been shipped out yet, so nobody has seen it. But we have seen it on live streams, and we have sort of seen it side by side, so you can see that it is a huge figure. However, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. The price went up as well as the minimum backers. The minimum backers that they needed for Galactus was 14,000, a huge number, considering the tier 4 for the Sentinel was at 16,000. So only 2,000 difference, and you had all the tiers unlocked. And the price had also gone up. So it was now retailing at, I think it was $399 or a straight 4, but it was a cent or two or a penny or two away from 400. So $400, £400, however you want to look at it, with 14,000 backers needed. That's a huge 5.6 million if the project was backed by the minimum amount of backers needed. The interesting thing here is they announced 0 tiers when they done the Haslab project announcement. They didn't announce any tiers. Similar to what they've done with Robbie Reyes, they've just announced that tiers are there to be unlocked. Now, the backing for the Galactus was quite slow to start, and it definitely had a slower start. It was looking a little bit worrying for a while, let's be honest. Unlike the Sentinel that was just backed straight away, and as soon as it was opened up to the international market, it just skyrocketed. Galactus was opened up to the international market, and the backers weren't as forthcoming, shall we say. There were a lot of people that were saying that they would buy multiple because of the aftermarket price of the Sentinel, and they were hoping to get the same kind of return on investment with the Galactus, but time's still going to tell with that one. They did, however, meet the 14,000 minimum backers required, and they announced the first tier at 16,000 backers, which was a Herald of Galactus Nova, a nice 6-inch figure. Tier 2 was announced shortly after, and that was a new updated Silver Surfer figure. Personally, I still prefer the Walgreens one, but that's a completely different video. Silver Surfer was pitched at 17,000 backers, and that was met quite quickly. Tier 3 was 20,000 backers, and it was another Herald of Galactus, and it was Morg. We only saw the digital rendering of the figure at this point, but not surprisingly, that tier was also met. They then put tier 4 in, and it almost felt like a bit of a joke. They gave us a Doom head. Basically, they upscaled a Doom head that we had from a 6-inch figure, and they put it on Galactus colours and gave Doom a Galactus body, which does tie in with the comics, but it felt like a little bit of a letdown after all of the other tiers. Not surprisingly, Galactus was fully funded, met all 4 of its tiers, and actually ended on a whopping 31,000 backers, or just shy of. 31,000 backers at 400 puts it in at well over 12 million, which is a huge amount of money for an action figure. But you do have to remember, this is a crowd-funded project. This isn't something that you have to buy. This isn't something that you need. This is a crowd-funded project. If you have that money, if you have the ability to buy these things, they're giving you the option to jump on board and get something that they couldn't normally just put into mass production, and giving you an opportunity to back something and be a part of something's creation. Now, if we look at it the same way, there's 4 6-inch figures there. So they gave us 4 6-inch figures. So take those off at 25 each. That takes it down to about 300. So you're paying 300 for the Galactus figure and 100 for the 4 figures. Bearing in mind that these figures are exclusive to this Haslab project. That's still a higher price that you're paying for Galactus, but there was 31,000 people that decided that it was something worth backing. And we do have Galactus figures out on the market. There are a couple previously. There's the old Toy Biz Build-A-Figure one, there's the Marvel Universe one. Granted, they're not as big as the Haslab project one, but they were still good, and they were still things that people like to have in their collection and were proud to have in their collection. So let's move on to my predictions when it comes to the Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider car. So the minimum backers needed is 9,000. 9,000 backers at 350. At the time of recording, there was over 3,000 backers already pledged, which is less than 24 hours. Not quite as fast as the Haslab Sentinel project, that was fully backed within 24 hours. Over 3,000 people with a 9,000 target in less than 24 hours isn't too bad going. And to me, says that this thing is going to get backed. Now, there is a lot of talk online on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. People saying that it's not worth the money, that £350 for a car is not worth the money. Now, I slightly differ in opinion. I think that when you look at what they've done with it, with the electronics and the additional accessories, etc., it's not quite worth the 350, but it is a high-end product. They have put the work in. It's not like they've just repurposed something that they've already got. It looks like a decent piece of kit, but 350 is still quite high. But here's my thoughts. If we look at the previous two Haslab projects, there are 4 unlock tiers. What they have stated is that the unlock tiers are all going to be 6-inch figures. They're not going to be additional parts for the car, which I think is a real plus. When you look at the Sentinel, it was great to have all those unlock tiers, but having additional heads, they've literally just become diorama pieces in my display or ended up in a fodder box because I can only display my Sentinel with one head. I would have personally much preferred 6-inch figures. I think they got that right with the Galactus figure, but then that last tier where it was a Doom head was a little bit of a letdown. Everyone was speculating about what that final figure was going to be, and then it ended up being a head, which was a bit of a, not kick in the teeth, but it was just a bit of a shame. Whereas they have stated from the very start here that this project is going to have unlock tiers, which are all 6-inch figures. And we all saw that Mephisto tease. Come on, they know what they're doing. They did state quite clearly on the live stream that they are not necessarily going to be Ghost Rider related figures, because let's be honest, there's not a huge repertoire of figures that they could produce that are going to be in demand when it comes to Ghost Rider. But they are going to be figures of the demonic nature of it, which is pretty cool and a good way of tying in some figures that they wouldn't normally be able to release for us. If we look at the pattern of the previous Haslab projects, you're looking at 4 unlock tiers, 4 additional 6-inch figures. Now, taking into consideration if the 9,000 backers is met within a week, which is doable considering we're a third of the way there in less than 24 hours, that's 4 additional tiers plus the 2 figures that you're going to get. That's 6 6-inch figures, all at 25 each. Let's add this up: 25, 50, 75, 100, 150. That's 150's worth of 6-inch figures. Take that off of the initial 350, that leaves the car at 200. 200 for a car of that size, with that many accessories, with light up features, with articulation, etc., isn't that far-fetched when you actually think about it. Considering for a lot of countries that includes delivery and that includes tax as well. So I think providing that all the unlock tiers are met and we get all of those 6-inch figures, it's not a bad value for money. 350 for 6 figures and a car isn't too bad. Considering a wave of figures of 6 to 7 figures is usually around the 150, 175 mark, depending where you are. So my prediction is this: we're going to see tier 1 at 10,000 backers. They're going to hit that 9,000 backers and they're going to announce the first tier at 10 to maybe 11,000 backers, and that's going to be the first one. But it's not going to be Mephisto. Tier 2 is going to come in at around 11 to 12,000 backers, and again, I don't think this is going to be Mephisto. Tier 3, I think, is going to come in a little bit higher. It's going to come in at around the 15,000, maybe 16,000 backers, and I think this one will be Mephisto. So tier 3 being Mephisto, you heard it here first. I think they're then going to throw in a 4th tier at something a little bit higher, like 20, 22,000 backers, and I think that we might get a Danny Ketch. People have been crying out for him for quite some time, and although they've said that there aren't going to be other Ghost Rider figures, I think that putting a Danny Ketch in as the 4th final stretch goal with a higher number is going to persuade those last few people to really back. That's my personal opinion. Now, when it comes to the actual figures that they're going to include, I'm not 100% sure. I think we're going to see Mephisto for sure at tier 3, I think it is. I think we might see Blackheart at maybe tier 1 or even tier 2. And I think we're going to see Danny Ketch at tier 4. So let's just, for argument's sake, let's say Blackheart at 1, Mephisto at 3, Danny Ketch at 4. That's my thoughts. I'm racking my brain and looking through the Marvel universe of figures and demonic figures, and I can't really think of 4 solid offerings. Like Mephisto, Blackheart are definitely 2 that I think people would be swung by, but I can't think of another 2 that they would add that would make people go, yeah, I'm backing this project because that figure is, I need that figure in my collection. Maybe a Lady Death, for Thanos to go with our comic Thanos that we had recently, but she's not a character they'll necessarily include in a wave, so maybe her. Do you have any ideas? If you've got any thoughts, if you have, put them in the comments below. But that is my wrap up and that is my thoughts. I think that this project is going to get backed. I really do. And I think that when you take into consideration the amount of backers that we got for the Sentinel, taking into consideration the pandemic and everything that was going on at the time, when you look at the sheer volume of people that backed the Galactus project, which was more expensive than this, granted it was a great big figure and it was Galactus at the end of the day, but 31,000 backers at 400 each is a lot of people. So I really do think there is enough of a demand for this. Looking at the chatter online, there are 2 very distinct camps. There are the hell yes I want this thing, and there are the hell no this is way too much money for a car. There isn't really a middle ground. There are some people that are sort of saying, you know what, I want to see what the tiers are like first. I think one thing's for sure, Marvel Legends are definitely going to drag this one out. But it's not going to go any further than October 31st because that is when backing closes. So we only have until the end of October to back this and get all of those tiers out there. But one thing's definitely for sure, Mephisto is finally coming. So agree, disagree, other thoughts, let me know in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching. Please do like, share, subscribe and all of those things, and I will see you soon.